Hello and welcome to the Woody Hayes Athletics Center. This is Bucknuts. What are we going to call this? Instant reaction.
Instant
Instant
reaction.
reaction. I like that. We'll probably do this throughout the season. I'm Patrick Murphy here with Steve Hellwagon. We just finished up with Ryan Day and Jim Knowles. Week 1 officially here. Ohio State obviously heads to Indiana this weekend. Not a big news day, huh?
Oh,
Just
my
kidding.
goodness. A lot of meat on the bone today.
Yeah, we'll start with the big news that I'm sure most of you have already heard about. Ryan Day says that Kyle McCord is Ohio State's starting quarterback for the Indiana game, but that Devin Brown will play in this game, which really isn't too much different than what he said last week when he said both guys are going to probably play. He just named a guy who was actually going to take the first snap. Were you surprised at all that he named a guy and that it was Kyle McCord?
No, I think this is about how you would have figured it would have gone. I've thought all along that Kyle McCord would be the starter, just on seniority alone. But Coach Day seemed adamant, and rightfully so, that they had to go out and earn the job. And I think that's exactly what's happened here. And that Devin Brown, for his part of it, has got to be proud of the fact that he pushed this thing all the way to the final week before the first game, 3.5 weeks of preseason camp. It took them to where they finally arrived at this decision. And it is a compromise decision in that Kyle McCord is the starter, but in no way is it viewed that he's going to take every meaningful snap in this game. And that means that at some point, Devin Brown's going to get in there, perhaps when the score is 14-3 or whatever it may be, and have an opportunity to lead this team at a key moment in this game. That's what you hope in a perfect world, I think, is what Day basically said. You go into the game with all kinds of preconceived notions, and then different things can happen and change the way that you're going to handle it. So I think that from a coaching standpoint, he did the right thing because he made them earn this job, both guys. And to his credit, Devin Brown has earned the right to play. And so he's going to get to play on Saturday. I think that's an exciting thing. And it shows, I think, to everybody on this team that was with him throughout preseason camp that Coach is a man of his word, that he said the staff was basically split down the middle a week ago on who should start and who shouldn't. And, it sounds like McCord in the last 2 weeks has come on and been more consistent and earned the spot. And that's how it ought to be.
Yeah. I was a little surprised that Ryan named a starter. I thought maybe he'd have the guy in mind and just not make it public this week. Now, that stuff may get out after you tell the players and whatnot, but I thought maybe, you make Indiana prepare for both. Now they still will because he says Devin Brown will play, but I was a little bit surprised. And I'm not surprised that it was Kyle McCord. The 2 days that we were out there, I thought he looked more consistent. Now, that was pretty early on in fall camp, to be fair. And Ryan Day said Devin Brown made a push at one point where he was a little bit ahead. But I do think just that experience, like you said, Steve, the fact that he's been in this program, he's played behind a guy like C.J. Stroud for 2 years. He did start a game, even though it was a very different team 2 years ago. To me, this makes a lot of sense. Now, this doesn't mean that he'll be the starter the whole year, though it wouldn't surprise me if he is. But I do think in terms of a pure passing standpoint, he is the more consistent guy. Devin Brown may offer you a little bit more excitement in terms of the stuff out of the pocket, and he can certainly complete the pass. But based on what we've seen, based on what we've heard, I think this fits kind of what Ryan Day has done in the past. You've seen it with CJ. Even Justin Fields didn't run a ton here. So not surprised. Like you said, and I think that's a good way to put it. Both guys have earned the right to play, and I think that's important to stress. How do you think this works? And Ryan Day said they don't really have a plan yet, but do you think it's a few series and then Devin's in the game? How would you imagine this plays out Saturday?
Yeah, they could let Kyle McCord play the first quarter and finish whatever series bleeds into the second quarter, and then maybe the first series that begins in the second quarter could be Devin Brown time. I think the proviso on that is if the ball's at the 5-yard line going in or if it's a 5-yard line going out. You may not want to do that. You may want to assure yourself that you're getting that touchdown with the more veteran guy if you're going in, and you want to take care of the football with the more veteran guy if you're coming out. So all things being equal, you take over after a punt on your own 30-yard line, let the kid go in and play. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? We can't assume that Ohio State's going to go out to Indiana and blow them out. It happens most times. 2 years ago, it was 54-7 in the rain in Bloomington. Last year, it was 56-14. I think that's the score. last year, and 56 is the most points Ohio State's ever scored in a game against Indiana. Tied a record that had been set two times previously. So the last two Indiana games have been blowouts. This one could be a blowout. Ohio State's 30-point favorite to blow Indiana out. But, Indiana added 23 transfer players. Are 15 of those guys all Sun Belt players, or all MAC or, whatever caliber? We wouldn't call them all Big Ten players, certainly, but, maybe third team all Big Ten players. Are any of these guys of that caliber to give Ohio State a game? We don't know. It's a guessing game. It's not like they've played 6 games and they come in 3-3 and they lost to Virginia and they beat Ball State. Like it is a lot of years, Indiana's played 5 or 6 games before Ohio State's played them. Right. They got a body of work. Who can play and who can't. Nobody knows anything for this Indiana team. It's a complete unknown. Quarterbacks have never played, a down or two of college football. I mean, it's crazy. They've got a transfer from Tennessee at quarterback. Taven Jackson possibly will start, or the other kid. Who knows?
Both young guys.
Yeah, just Sorsby, I think, is the other guy. So a lot of unknowns with this game. And for you to ask me, well, how would, in a perfect world, as I said, let McCord play the first 2 or 3 series. Maybe you're up 13-3, whatever it is, 14-3. Put Brown in, see what happens. If it goes well, give him another one, and just kind of have some feel for it. I mean, I'm not too worried about that. There's other areas of this team that need to play really well as well for this team to reach the promised land. And so it sounds to me like they've got 2 pretty good quarterbacks that they can win with.
Yeah, and for me, and we'll move on from the quarterback after this, I think this is good. I think, you as you're saying, you don't know what the score will be, but I think we're all going to predict that Ohio State's going to win this game, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So you get these quarterbacks this experience of playing in a Big Ten game on the road. Who cares who starts? They both get to go out there and play. Then you get 2 home games where you should win pretty easily. They get that experience. Then you have that Notre Dame game. Look, if Kyle McCord starts that game and something goes wrong and you need Devin Brown, okay, at least he's experienced a road game before,
exactly.
Right? So I think this could work out positively. I said this last week on the happy hour. I think there could be positives out of this. Now, you want to handle it right, but I do think you could see positive things. And maybe Kyle McCord goes through this whole year, plays really well, moves on to the NFL, and now Devin Brown has experience next year when we get to this situation. So some other things that came out of this, Malik Hartford. Sounds like he's going to have a role. The adjuster position is still open. He's competing with Jihad Carter, the transfer from Syracuse, and Josh Proctor, the 6th-year senior.
Yeah.
So, but to be a freshman, a guy who decently highly recruited, but not top of the board guy, I think is interesting to have him in that mix early on. And it sounds like he's going to play some role at least on this defense this year.
Yeah, I think that will be interesting to see how the rotation shakes out in the secondary. They talked about playing 3 corners at sometimes too, with Hancock, Igbinosun, and Denzel Burke. So we'll see how those work out if they're able to do that. But Hartford sounds like he's going to play. Some other true freshmen, Arvell Reese on special teams, Luke Montgomery on the offensive line potentially. And there's one more. Carnell Tate, wide receiver.
Tate.
Yeah, Carnell Tate at wide receiver.
Yeah, he's almost not a freshman. I feel like we've just heard and seen so much about Carnell Tate over the last few years, or the last several months. It'll certainly be fun to watch him get out there. Luke Montgomery, a guy. I'll have a story on Luke Montgomery. Talk to his dad. Talk to his high school coach. I'll have a story on him later this week.
Awesome.
Looking forward to finishing that. So keep an eye out on that.
Carson Hinsman at center. It sounds
Carson
like
Hinsman,
he's earned the starting
Red
job.
shirt.
Never played it down in college football. He's going to be centering the ball back to Kyle McCord and Devin Brown in this game. The young guys, they don't know what they don't know.
Yep.
Getting in there for the first time in a Big Ten game on the road. I don't think it'll be real loud. For it to be the first game, I would envision out of 55,000 people, there'll be 15 or 20,000 Ohio State fans,
sure,
and probably 35, 40,000 Indiana fans, just because the bloom's not off the rose yet at Indiana. I think one thing that didn't come up in today's press conference is how they're going to handle the heat. It's going to be 87 degrees and sunny on Saturday afternoon in Bloomington.
And that turf makes it feel a lot.
Yes, the concrete at Memorial Stadium and the turf are going to make it feel like it's about 115 degrees on the field, if not, even maybe more than that.
Right.
So it's going to be a hot day. Going to need to hydrate if you're going, and they're going to need to play a lot of players. There's just no other way around it. Guys are going to break down. Guys are going to wear down in that heat. So this really helps to be too deep at every position. I've harped on it all camp. Have two fields where you run 22, 11 on 11, 11 on 11, all practice, as much as practice as you do that. I think it's built the depth on this team. And I feel like there is a true two deep at every position on this team, if not 3 and 4. Running back was interesting.
Yep.
We got the hierarchy, boys and girls. Travion, Mayan, Chipper, Dallin Hayden, Evan Pryor.
Maybe Evan Pryor.
Maybe Evan Pryor.
Brian Day said, we'll see if we can get him in. It sounds like those top 4 guys will play. It sounds like Travion, as he was last year before he was hurt, was the starter. Mayan played equal amount of snaps those early games. But,
my picks to click are Travion Henderson and Jack Sawyer. I think those two guys, if they stay healthy, they are going to be stars on this team. Those are my 2 picks to click early, often, and every week for Ohio State this coming season. I just heard a lot of great things about Jack Sawyer in this camp, and how he was a consistent pass rushing threat, constantly making plays in the backfield, how he has upped his game from a year ago, and he needed to be that frontline guy. So I've heard a lot of great things about him.
Yeah, and if you can get him going and JT Tuimalau playing consistently on the other side, then you've got Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson who can come in. You've got the guys in the middle. I mean, that's the makeup of a pretty dangerous defensive line, and they need that pressure up front. You mentioned Carson Hinsman. What is your feeling on this offensive line? Because that was my biggest question coming in, and it sounds like they like this group, but they're also not going to say, you don't say a lot of negative things this time of year, right?
Yeah.
So what's your sense of how this line will play?
They've talked a lot about, we're going to show you when the games start.
Yeah.
And so I think that is a question, the 10 pressing questions, that's going to be certainly one of them. How do they look when basically the flag goes down and the race begins? You get the green flag on Saturday and the ball's teed up and put in the air, and then you got to go move the football. How do they play? And offensive line, I mean, it's a rugged, tough job. I mean, because you're basically stalemating for 60 minutes, just trying to make sure that the guy who's every bit as big and strong as you are, and maybe even faster in some cases, doesn't make a play. And sometimes they're going to, and sometimes they're not. So, it's a tough job. And Ohio State's basically starting over on the offensive line. You've got the 2 veterans with Matthew Jones, Donovan Jackson at the guard spots, and Fryer's played some football. Josh Simmons played the whole season last year at San Diego State, but this is a step up in class, certainly, to play in the Big Ten Conference. So, and Hinsman hasn't played it down in college football yet. So we'll see how it goes on Saturday, what it looks like. My guess is they'll slide some other guys. Enoch Vamahi will get a series. Tegritosh Bola could get a series at tackle. Victor Cutler could get a series at center as well. To me, those are the top 3 reserves. If you had to, say Luke Montgomery maybe as well at tackle, and Zim Mahalski possibly as well at tackle. Yeah. But I think that you're going to play a lot of guys this weekend.
Yeah, and then the last thing, and you kind of touched on this already, going on the road, Big Ten game to start the season. They did this 2 years ago, Minnesota. Similar situation in terms of center quarterback. It was Luke Whippler and
6
CJ
years
Stroud.
ago at Indiana with
with
veteran JT Barrett.
Yep. So I think that is interesting. If they were opening at home like they are next week with Youngstown State, sure there'd be plenty to talk about, and we'd have all these questions. But I think we're going to learn a little bit more than we would in a normal opener. And
no
so
doubt.
I think that's going to be exciting.
Trailed at halftime both times they went on the road to open Big Ten play. Trailed by I want to say, it was either 1 point or 4 points in both those games at Minnesota, and I think it was 4 points at Indiana and 1 point at Minnesota. They ended up blowing out Indiana 49-21, and they ended up winning by 2 touchdowns, 45-31 at Minnesota in the rain with CJ Stroud. Where that leaves you spread players, I don't know. Ohio State minus 30 is very tantalizing, I have to admit. If it was here in Columbus, I'd say no problem at all because they run it up pretty big over here at the stadium. But to go on the road, first time out of the box, it's kind of flip a coin if you ask me. I haven't settled on a score. I'm either thinking 42-14 or 49-14, something in that realm. So, and that's on both sides of it. So
well, stay
I can't
tuned.
make a decision.
Yeah, stay tuned because we'll have those predictions in our roundtable later this week. We've got more interviews tomorrow evening with some of the players. We'll have plenty of stuff coming out. Ryan Day's radio show and the lightning round Thursday, and then we're
the 36 minutes of Ryan Day is up on the site if you want to enjoy that. Also, about 17 minutes of Jim Knowles is in the comments section below the Ryan Day video. That's there as well. He gets you up to date on the defense. Everything you need to know about this team is contained in those two videos, 36 minutes, 17 minutes. Who's going to play, who they're leaning on, maybe even a little bit about how they're going to play. Everybody needs to know all that. But we're going to know it in due time because they're going to have to put it out there on Saturday. It's a Big Ten game on the road. I'll be at Indiana. I don't think anybody's picking Indiana anywhere but the basement in the East. And so I'm going to scrounge around for my game data and to see where they were picked. But they're not picked real high. So
we'll be there. Afterwards, Dave will be live on here on all these channels, and we'll hop on there as well to talk about the game. But we'll have plenty of coverage throughout the week. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Watch out for this more this year after these press conferences. We'll do this. We'll have Biddle involved as well. So thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon, guys.